All right, it's about the WEN 4208 and some of the issues that I was having with it. The way it kind of comes from the factory is not exactly the best setup. The bearings in it, I find them to be lacking, to say the very least. Please ignore the sound of crickets. For some reason, the spiders haven't eaten them yet. So, among the things that I notice are things where the pulleys, right? So these guys, you have to have this guy way down low and this one way up high. They come misaligned. Now, of course, if you look at the diagram, you can see that they're level, right? So that was the first thing I started with. And I thought that might take care of kind of the knocking sound and the vibrations that were happening. But in my head, I already knew that was a bearing issue, and there's really nothing you can do about that but change the bearings. Now, there's no real discussion about this online, so I'm going to kind of go through just a little bit of the steps I got to breaking this down, and apparently breaking something else. So the first thing you want to do is loosen the motor mount, detension it, slack off the belt, and there's a set screw there that you want to remove, or loosen anyway, and then pop this guy off. What you'll see then is there is this guy protruding through the top, and that is what the set screw screws into. There's also a stacked 6203 bearing set right here. So there's two of those and a snap ring. You remove the snap ring, and then that's it for now on that. There used to be two other snap rings on this particular setup, and if I don't find them real fast, I'm never going to see them again. So there's two snap rings on this assembly. One very small one not a small one, right? And those come off when you remove this assembly, which will have the two 6203 bearings on it. It's going to come out this way. Now, the next thing you need to do, right, is we're going to have to take out this guy, right? It has this little pinion gear on it. And that is held in by the spring return right here on this side. So you loosen that off and remove this guy from the side. It's kind of important to note that WEN has a pretty terrible manufacturing ethos when it comes to cleaning up areas before applying grease. They like to just leave them dirty. So this area in here is just going to be filthy. Snap ring there. There's also a snap ring inside this bore, which is, you can see it right there, right? I just left that in there. I don't see any need to remove it. But eventually what I did was, after I pulled this out, I loosened off, the nuts and the little depth stop, and that allowed the quill to drop down through, and then I removed it. After I pulled the quill out, it left the two 6203s and this guy inside them. And I just grabbed a punch, put it up through there, tapped it out, and got the bearings out. And of course, that's very destructive, and there's not really a better way to do it. It's just sort of in there. There may be another approved way, but I'm not sure what it is. And I'm sure you can try to get up in there with your snap ring pliers and undo the clip, but yeah, good luck. I can't even get my fingers in there. So that was not an option as far as I was concerned. One thing I forgot to mention is that there is a screw, looks like this, with a split head, right, and a nut on it. This from the factory is, sorry, my magnet in the way, is basically there to tension against the quill to prevent it from having any axial movement. That has to come out before you remove it as well. Otherwise, it's just never coming out. Other than that, it's a fairly straightforward takedown. The things I would recommend are just having a set of snap ring pliers for opening, closing. The ones that I use, wherever they ended up, here they are. Or Vice Grip brand, they have where you can change the tips of them, and you can do them both opening, and also you can have it where it's closing and pinching tighter. So you could choose to use one set of these or have one of both, where for the larger snap rings, you need to pull them together to get them out, and the smaller ones you need to spread to get them off the shafts. So in removing the quill, this mechanism right here, right? One thing I did was I took a stone and just took the edges down on this because this was sharp enough to cut you. Inside you can see it's just a small machined area, and that's where the two bearings sit. 6201s, double shields. I think so. Let me just verify that part number. Yep, 6201s. And one of them, as you can see, is still on the shaft, and the other goes in the top here. Right. This one came out super easy. This assembly just fell right through. You could pull it through. That was no problem. And then I just turned this around, hit the back of that with a punch, as you can see, and it came out easily. Again, here are the other two bearings, the 6203s. Just whatever Chinese bearing it is. They're not the problem. Well, maybe one of them is now, but they're pretty smooth. This bearing was okay, but the one that was really bothersome was this one right here. You can hear it. Really gritty. Another thing that was going on is that this particular chuck it's not great, right? I've been trying to separate these two with wedges, and the taper is just kind of frozen in there. I don't think that's a great thing. And what I found is that this is not a hardened steel part, really. It's a little bit mushy. And I found out because I tried to get it out by hitting the inside of this guy with a punch, and as you can see, it's just kind of deformed it. Not a good look, but you know, what can you do, right? So it's a little too bright. There we go. But that's what we're working with, you know. A little aggravating, but I've ordered a replacement chuck, and if you're interested, it's the taper on this is a JT33, and so this is 1.5 to 13 millimeters, but you can get, you know, 1/32 to 5/8 chuck. That's what I ordered, and we'll see that will probably work just fine. So this assembly is going to have, I would usually say use like a bearing splitter, or if you have, you know, the wedges that are steel and work for a JT33, that would be ideal. As far as removing this bearing, I've had to heat it up. You can see it's got a bit of that temper color on the outside, but I've had to heat it up just to kind of get it to move a little bit, and it's pretty well on this shaft. So it's got to be, chuck comes off first with the wedges, and then let's just hope that bearing comes up. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have to get in there with the whizzy wheel and get rid of some metal. But as far as the rebuild goes, the only thing I would say that you should be concerned about is just replace all the bearings, right? The chuck, if you like the chuck, it's an okay chuck. I'm sure I could salvage it, but honestly, you know, if I can get a new one for 30 bucks, then that's 30 bucks that's well spent, in my opinion. You know, this was nothing special in the first place. It's not a very expensive drill press. The parts, you know, for bearings and stuff, we're looking at, you know, 20, 30 bucks plus, you know, another chuck. So we're basically into an $80 drill press for another 60 bucks, right? It was fine for a long time until it started making that clunking and vibrating sound, and the runout was just too bad, right? I couldn't get this off to check and see if there was a problem with the taper or anything like that. So we just had to go all the way. So that's part one of the takedown.